Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dimitri Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to MMA Latest. We're here for the review of Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov. I'm here joined with the regulars, Reese and Jay. Guys, how's your weekend been?
Been good. We were all looking forward to this weekend's fights. Especially with everything that's going on at the minute, to make it to the weekend and to see some fights, especially with the only sport being on. It's a nice way to end the week.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Weekend, perfectly fine, I guess. Good little Father's Day. Straight back into my regular 9 to 5, but we got this week's fights out of the way, and I'm looking forward to Saturdays as well, but I'm sure we'll touch on that another time. But yeah, good week ahead as well, more fights to come. Yeah,
obviously someone who had a good weekend was Curtis Blaydes. He dominated that fight over 5 rounds. He came into the week saying he was going to ragdoll Volkov, and he pretty much did that. I think the only asterisk towards him is that he didn't get a finish, and Volkov did look like he could do some damage in that 4th and 5th round. And obviously Blaydes did tire very, very quickly, as you'd probably expect from someone who got 14 takedowns and is now the record for the most takedowns in a heavyweight bout. Reese, what did you make of Blaydes' performance this weekend?
We all kind of knew that was coming. Especially after what he said in the week on Twitter, that if you're expecting a 5-round standing brawl, then you're not going to get that. And I think Volkov knew that was the sort of plan of attack for Blaydes as well. Like, the thing is, with Curtis Blaydes is in such a weird position now because of the fact that he is probably the next guy in line, but the guy who's just in front of him is Francis Ngannou, and Francis Ngannou has beat him twice. And I don't think any of us want to see that third fight because it's been quite conclusive for the 2 times they have fought beforehand. So he did exactly what he said he was going to go in and do. He won the fight like he was probably meant to on paper. He's doing everything he can, but he's going to be a victim of a vacant belt. It's going to end up becoming a thing. And, he did well, even though Dana White wasn't happy with him. He did everything he possibly could have to put himself in the title picture.
Yeah, Jay, Volkov came in here, he was very much the underdog, but there was something there with the kickboxing, obviously the height advantage he had. And, he did okay. He outstruck him in terms of total strikes. There was 31 he landed, 69 for Curtis Blaydes. And obviously Blaydes dominated on the ground, but you've got to give props to Volkov for not, diminishing there and keeping and persevering throughout that whole fight.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think Volkov's his ability has been there to see for a long time now, and I think the only blemish that kind of went against him was, obviously, if you remember the Derek Lewis fight when he was just completely in control, and then Derek Lewis done what Derek Lewis does, and he put him out with a few seconds to go, and he kind of got back on the horse a little bit. But I think we all kind of knew what was going to happen this time around. Like you said, in the latter rounds, he did come on a little bit, and it looked like he. There was potential there to get a fight fit, like finish the fight, but at the end of the day, it's like Reese said, and it's like Curtis Blaydes said, he's just gone out to wrestle, and Curtis Blaydes made sure he done just that, and he kept the fight way away from Volkov's strengths.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that it was such a dominating performance, and one, if he had got a finish in that first 2 rounds, maybe he would come out more favourable for a title shot, perhaps, or at least put his name in there? The fact that Dana's come out and said his performance didn't match what his pre-match build-up was, or the fact that...
Sorry, go ahead.
Obviously...
No, I didn't... Even if he got the finish, I don't think it would have been enough. I mean, you can't discredit what Francis Ngannou's done. Francis Ngannou has... His last 4 fights have gone a total of 2 minutes and a couple of seconds here and there. Like, you can't go against that. And Curtis Blaydes is also a victim of Francis Ngannou twice, as we just said. So I don't think no matter how he won the fight, he was never going to be the next man in. It was always going to be Francis. Now, what I will say is, if Cormier beats Stipe, there's a very good chance that maybe Curtis Blaydes does get that 3rd fight against Ngannou for a vacant title. Because I just couldn't imagine Stipe would get 2 immediate rematches if he lost. I can understand the first time round, but if he loses this one again in his first title defence since the 2nd round, I'd probably imagine they would go Ngannou and somebody else. We initially thought before, if you remember the three of us spoke, we thought it could be Jon Jones. But then again, Curtis Blaydes would probably be the next person in line as well. Throw his name into the hat for the title shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, just to play devil's advocate, Reese, if Stipe retains his titles, who we saw what Stipe did to Francis Ngannou, could you then maybe say Curtis Blaydes, having a fresh matchup like that could probably work out in favour for him?
I think it definitely opens up more routes for him in terms of opponents going forward. But as I said at the start, like, he's in such a poor position, which is weird to say, considering that where he is ranked in the world. But, if Stipe wins, and Stipe obviously faces Francis for a second time, and obviously that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. If Francis wins, do you then have the scope for a third fight maybe? But then obviously, as Jay said, it's so tough to warrant Stipe immediate rematches like that. But for Blaydes, yeah, I mean, if Stipe wins, Blaydes could definitely come out the best person place situation, because then you fight off against Francis and Stipe. And if Francis wins, look, at the end of the day, we're going to have to put Francis back in there with Curtis at some point. We're going to have to do it at some point. So, but I just don't think we just don't want to see it anytime soon because of how the first two fights went.
Yeah, it's very difficult to make that matchup a third time. I guess almost in a sense that Blaydes is only 27. He's still very young for a heavyweight, so he's still got a lot of growing to do in that division. And the fact that he's already in that top three in the conversation for a title only bodes well for him. I think he's only lost 2 in the UFC, and they're both to Francis Ngannou, who's the person ahead of him. So he is in a limbo position. Whether he looks at the likes of an OSP heavyweight, maybe Gustafsson or Verdum when they fight off, and obviously we've got Olenek versus Derek Lewis. So those probably are more his matchups for him, and especially Dana White, who scolded him, as we said at the weekend, almost told him to stay active rather than wait for that trilogy fight. And it's clear to see that Dana is probably favouring Ngannou probably as the rest of the MMA community is for that title shot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to begin to Ngannou once that trilogy happens.
I think the heavyweight division is in such a weird position, obviously because of the two men fighting for that title, that they effectively both could retire at the end of that fight. Then it just leaves that vacant title. And, a lot of the top 10 in that division as well have fought off against each other at some point during their careers. And that's why, although I'm not a massive fan, the additions of OSP and Gustafsson to the division, it definitely adds a bit of freshness to it in a division which I think is quite stagnant at the minute. There's nothing really, like going years back, we used to look at that division. We used to, like, it's absolute killers in there. I don't really think we look at that like that anymore, which is a shame because, as I said, that's always been the case. But I do think we're in need of some, a Jon Jones moving up to really put the spotlight back on a division and make it, one of the greatest divisions that we've got in the sport.
Yeah, I think, we're in the heavyweight division is a limbo where you've got the people, the champion and the challenger are just past their prime, come towards the end of their career. You've got the people coming up aren't quite ready yet to challenge those, and you've got the people in between who are coming in towards their prime but just can't get that chance yet. So it's gonna be interesting. I think if we look maybe 2021 or at least 2022, we'll be looking at a very fruitful heavyweight division, I think. And I think maybe with Ngannou or Jon Jones at the helm of that division.
Potentially. Yeah.
Definitely. We'll move on to maybe a fight of the year contender. We had, obviously, Shane Burgos unfortunately lose to Josh Emmett, who looked fantastic that fight. Jay, what did you make of Josh Emmett this weekend?
Josh Emmett was excellent. The only negative about it was what came after the fight with a 9-month, potential probably 9-month layoff with an ACL tear following other injuries as well. But I thought his performance, he was brilliant. He hits like a truck, and Shane Burgos is just equally as tough. That was a scrap, and I'd watch that fight 10 times over. I would actually love to see Shane Burgos welcome Josh Emmett back to the cage just for the sake of seeing that one more time. It was that good. I think Josh Emmett, when he does come back, he's in a bit of a weird situation. Like I don't know where to fully place him in the division, but to me, I think that the injury is after coming at such a wrong time because it's probably another title, a fight or two away from being in title contention. So if he can come back and kind of regain that momentum early on, I think he could do really well.
Yeah, he had a big surge when he first joined the promotion, come up against Jamie Stevens, and Jamie Stevens kind of showed him that there was levels to the game, and he's been unfortunate with injuries that he's had. He's come back, and in terms of on paper, it probably wasn't the best matchup for him. You know, he didn't need to take that fight. You know, Burgos wasn't even ranked, I don't think. So for him to take that fight was fantastic in his own right. But, you know, to come out of that fight, especially with injuries that he had, and I think he's definitely solidified himself as a genuine contender now. And most people, I think, are looking towards the winner of versus Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. That's happening next. I think it's August. I think it is. So that's going to be a massive fight because I think Josh Emmett could very, very easily face the winner of that.
Yeah, you know, obviously he got the win, but that did come at a cost. I'm just going to read you out his injury list from the fight that he won. He got one complete ACL tear, his MCL sprain with partial tearing, one Baker's cyst rupture, one focal impact fracture of the femur on the lateral, and one chondral defect on tibia laterally matching impact area. So that's some injury list to come back. You know, he went through a war, and that ACL came in the very first round, and he powered through those next two rounds and got the win nonetheless.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it just shows like how tough these people are that go into fight. You know, like it's easy for us to sit here and to criticize fighters and to praise fighters for doing stuff wrong, right? But you look at like he's doing his ACL in the first round and he's practically got 24 minutes on one leg. Like there's nothing. I don't think you can sit there and you can't break down that performance any better than he just did so well to still be standing. Both of them did, to be fair, but especially Josh Emmett towards the end of the fight, because if that's me, I'm on the floor, I'm rolling around like crying my eyes out because I've just done my ACL. So nothing but hats off to Josh Emmett and for staying in there as long as he did.
Yeah, like I react a certain way when my 5-year-old hits me a punch. This dude got his cruciate ripped to pieces and yet goes to war still and gets his hand raised at the end of it. Like it's toughness on beyond another level. Like and like I said, it just came at the worst time for him because coming off a fight like that and to just go and like keep that momentum going and stuff like that, it would have done so many good things for him. But hopefully he can pick it back up once he gets back fit and healthy.
Yeah, you know, despite that injury, he almost got better as the rounds went on. And Shane Burgos gave it as good as he got, but that third round, you know, got knocked down twice, and Josh Emmett really made his mark on that fight and comfortably came out the winner then. But yeah, that was a cracking co-main event and potentially a fight of the year candidate, perhaps. We'll probably see that definitely in the top 3, perhaps, when the awards get given out at the end of the year.
That's a good one. What would be some of the contenders for fight of the year right now?
Probably Yanni and Jacek Zhang would probably be my number 1 at the moment.
Yeah, that would be number
2.
I don't think you can. I don't think there's been a women's fight like that for so long, and you know, to 5 rounds as well. And I think we find ourselves a lot of the time when we see good 3-round fights, like we did with the weekend as well. If only it was 2 more rounds. If only we saw another 10 minutes of that, because then that would, you know, it would solidify its place in history as one of the best fights. And it's a shame. It was exactly the same, and Shane played his part in that fight. And you know, the saying goes, you've got to have a good dance partner to put on these fights. And the 2 women were perfectly suited to each other, and maybe we might see that again sometime. But yeah, the Joanna fight and then the Josh Emmett fight this weekend. I don't know about a third. Not sure about a third fight. I can't think.
Yeah, that's still to come, isn't it, really? I think Till Whittaker might be up there. We might see Poirier Hooker this weekend put on a show for us.
There's so many good fights. You know, let's not forget 251 with the 3 championship bouts on it. You know, it's so many fights towards the end of the summer and then towards the winter time are definitely going to be in the mix. I can guarantee that.
It's a good time for fights.
It's a great time, especially when it's one of the very few sports that are on at the moment. But, you say you almost want extra 2 rounds of that fight. I slightly disagree, just because of the fact that obviously those extra 2 rounds, they might not have been that sort of action within 3 rounds, because they got to prepare themselves for an extra 2 rounds. one, I think Burgos was probably going out in that third round. So adding a fourth round to that, I think that definitely would have been finished. But yeah, that 3 rounds was perfect almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Some fighters definitely, are more suited to the 3-round fight. Obviously it comes into it with training as well. Is that you do train different intensities for 3 to 5 round fights, but the way that fight was going, I just couldn't see anything more than another 10 minutes of just. It was almost recklessness, but it was beautiful technical recklessness as well, and it was just on point. And that fight was just fantastic. And to be fair, I think that was a great explanation, Oda. I think that was brilliant.
Yeah, I have never heard beautiful technical recklessness ever.
There we go. It's like controlled chaos, isn't it? It's like controlled chaos.
Get out a t-shirt.
Yeah, happy for that.
Technical recklessness, I like it. Get them on the t-shirt.
Yeah, this weekend's fight, it kind of, as you said, that it reminded me almost of Colby versus Usman. That was a back and forth fight, and Colby would eventually, his body couldn't hold up anymore. And I think we probably would have seen that the same this weekend with Shane Burgos. As hard as his chin was and as granite, and he almost came out with it, with an almost higher stock and definitely higher respect. I think we would have seen the same as that fight that we saw at UFC 245.
I think we've definitely started to see that more now. We've played with fighters coming out losing, but coming out with higher stocks. Sort with Felicia Spencer in her 2 losses against Cyborg and Nunes, and Shane's definitely come out as people now know who he is, because he obviously fought Calvin not too long ago, and I think like Jeremy Stevens shown to Josh Emmett, there was just levels to the game, and that was what Calvin showed Shane. But Shane's come back and he did really, really well, and he'll be back towards the end of the year, and I think he's going to be one of those. It's always going to be a fan favourite, and we're all going to want to watch him fight.
Yeah, it's almost a blessing to him, because you're probably going to see him fight 2, maybe 3 times before we see Josh Emmett in the cage again, unfortunately.
Yeah, potentially.
We also had UFC debutant Max Roshkov step into the cage for the first time, and unfortunately it didn't go quite his way. He had a very good first round by the looks of things on social media. Obviously in the UK, the broadcast is a little bit behind. But what did you make of Max Roshkov? And, his team was quite unwilling to pull him out of that fight. And you could almost say the fighter knows his body best. If he wasn't ready or wasn't able to continue, Reese, he had every right to call the fight on his own. He should have had more backing from his team, don't you think?
Absolutely. I was horrified to watch that. Obviously it was the first fight of the night, so I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I saw the clip that ESPN put out on social media. And look, at the end of the day, we discussed it earlier, we're not fighters. We don't have the balls to get in there and do it. So credit first and foremost to anybody who gets in there and does it. But when your guy comes back and you've only got a minute in between the rounds and he says the word call it 9 times, and that you've also got to add in 3-4 other times that he said, I don't have it. And the cornerman, don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic coach, Robert Drysdale is. He's brilliant, and what he's done is fantastic with all the other fighters that he's had. But to persuade your man to go back in there, I think that was horrible, and I think it's rightly being investigated by the commission, because, as you said, the fighter is the first person who knows whether they're able to win a fight. It's easy for the coach who are outside of the octagon to sit there and say, I believe you can do it. I know you can do it. You do it in training every day and stuff like that. But when you yourself don't think you have it in you, and you got to bear in mind, he took it on 5 days' notice. He was training, but was he training for a 3-round fight? Probably not. He probably gassed out after the first round. He said he had a great first round. He got a lot of takedowns in that first round. And he come back to the corner, and I can imagine he was pumped to get back into that second round, and that second round was so brutal for him. He got hit with so many clean shots by Hubbard. And as I said, to go back between rounds and just quite clearly admit that you don't have it in you, you don't want to go out to perform, you don't want to fight anymore. I thought it was shameful on Robert Drysdale to even try and make him go back in there for a 3rd round.
Yeah, it's one of those where you could say the coach knows his fighter better than anybody, right? And, he sees him day in, day out on a weekly basis in the gym, and he knows what he's about. He knows his capabilities. He knows his strengths, his weaknesses. For the coach to assume that, it's okay, you go out there, you can win this fight. don't worry, just go out and do it. You can do it, you can do it. Sometimes that's just not enough, you know. It doesn't matter that you know what he's like, what you see in the gym, or that he has the capabilities. Let's just say that he does have the capabilities to beat Austin Hubbard, right? He probably does. But for where he was going into that third round, there was absolutely no way that he should have continued fighting. I do agree with Reese, but I can't see the coach's side of it because he spends a lot of time with him. But I couldn't imagine, like, it's like we said, look, we're not fighters, you know. We probably trained a bit here and there and stuff, but I mean, if I was in a corner and I knew going into the third round that this guy just had too much from me and I couldn't do it and I was taking too much damage, and I know in myself that I can't beat this person, where is the logic in me going out to beat him? You know, especially while I'm hurt and I'm tired. And like you said, he took the fight on 5 days' notice. He out-wrestled him the first round and potentially blew his gas tank. So where is the logic in me going out and getting hurt? We said it before when we talked about Anthony Smith. Now, it's not the same because Anthony Smith didn't want his corner to throw in the towel. But it's when we said sometimes it's better off to just fight another day. This was one of those cases. And I do believe Robert Drysdale had great intentions for Grushkov, but I just think when a fighter comes in and he says he needs out, you need to listen and you need to back him up on that. You know, it's like when you want to call a fight. What happens if, let's just say, you go back, like Tony Ferguson, right? Tony Ferguson goes back against Justin Gaethje. And he's like, no, I'm good. But your corner's like, no, I want to stop it. You know? There's a dispute there, right? It's the same way on the other end. So it just makes no sense. Sometimes you just have to listen and go with the best advice. And I think the coach got it wrong, and I think it was rightfully so. It was right that the fighter let it be known to people that could hear it, to bring that to the referee's attention, and then it was called. So I'm glad it was called, and I'm glad he did go out and take more damage.
Yeah, I think in terms of, I think in that situation you've got two scenarios. You've got the max one, and you've also got like the Anthony Smith one, for example. But obviously, Anthony Smith corner didn't want to put him out. I'm going to go back to when Raquel Pennington fought Amanda Nunes, and Raquel Pennington was getting battered for four rounds, and she went back to the corner at the end of the fourth round. And to be fair, she only said it once, but she said, I can't do this. And that's when the corner, you know, the talk was to definitely turn motivational, and they were passionate, and they were like, you can do it, and you can do it. And I don't mind that too much. I still think the corner probably should have pulled it out at the time because she was getting...
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, she was getting battered. But I think it's just a completely different scenario when the fighter comes back, says it 9 times. Like, as we said, like we don't know what's going through a fighter's mindset when they're in that fight. You know, he took it on 5 days' notice. That second round was so hard. He was getting his head punched in, and he was exhausted on that stall at the end. And the fact that he had to tell a commissioner that he didn't want to continue because his own coach wouldn't listen to him. Thankfully, the message got through to a referee, and we were able to stop the fight. And he's 25 years old. He's got so many years left in the sport. So why are we trying to let him, go out on his gum shield like that? Like, just let the kid take a step back, because I can imagine this week, but leading up to the week, it was crazy for the guy. I can imagine, UFC debut, short notice. There's a lot of hype around you. You're only 5-0, granted, but there's a lot of hype. And to come into that and adrenaline, it must have just went out the window straight away, especially after that first round. So just sit back. Look, it's not often you go through your career without losing. There's not many fighters, whether that be boxing or whether that be MMA, that have gone through their entire career undefeated. So you are going to have setbacks. It's how you come back from those setbacks. And I think if we would have saw him go out for that third round, I think we would have been a while before we saw him again, because that was such a mental block. But I'm hoping now that Robert Drysdale, I know he's come out and defended himself. And as Jay said, I can definitely see the coach's side of it. But I still think that, in the end, the right decision was made that you weren't allowed to come out for that third round. But, he's 25, so he's got 15 years left in the sport. Like, let him fight.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, it's we always question the fighter's corner. I think for Max, I commend him. Obviously, he's shown his intelligence almost as a fighter there, saying, he is only 25 years old. He's very early in his career. And if, again, as you say, he could have gone out into that third round, been knocked out, and that could have detrimental, effects on his career and potentially his health. We've seen it in the world of boxing where someone isn't quite right on the night. And as you say, that build-up this week would have been mental for him. It's his UFC debut. The adrenaline, as you say, probably would have dumped immediately just because there's no fans in the crowd, perhaps. Obviously, in normal circumstances, that first walk through him would have been, probably maybe 10,000 people there chanting him, or at least giving him his plaudits. But yeah, I hugely commend Max Rushkoff for what he did this week. And I think we'll see him back in UFC, maybe in a year or two. I think he'll go back to an organization where he's fighting beforehand, maybe get a couple of fights under his belt, maybe a change of camp, perhaps. I don't know what this camp's going to be like for him, but that next camp could be a little weird for him, perhaps, Extreme Couture. But yeah, I'm full of respect for Max Rushkoff. And you see Dana White's reaction as well. He was very commendable of him as well. So I think it's all good things for Max Rushkoff, and it's better we saw him throwing the towel rather than being carried out on a stretcher, perhaps.
Yeah.
There's no shame at the end of the day in admitting that you've had enough, or admitting that you can't win the fight. I think if anything, it takes a bigger set of balls just to on live television to sit there and admit that I can't do it. And sometimes, especially on the fighter side, we don't see that enough. Like we mentioned with Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, that was a tough one because he started so well, and then in the end, he just kind of got overwhelmed by Glover. But I don't think I've saw what happened on a weekend inside that cage in a long, long time, especially to that effect. So I was quite shocked to see that.
Yeah, like pride is such a dangerous thing. In a sense, like it's a gift and a curse, and I think, like we've seen it, like you said, like Reach just said with Anthony Smith, he started so well, he was in the fight, and it was probably the same thing this weekend, Yeah, Rushkoff, he started well, and then faded, and then he got beat up the second round. But it's fighters do have a sense of too much pride, and eventually that's going to come back, and it'll take its toll. I think we've seen it. Like, look at the careers of, like, BJ Penn is the best example. Probably the most prideful fighter you'll come across. And look at where he's at now. You know what I mean? Like, he just can't step away from the sport. Well, hopefully now he has. But he couldn't for the longest time. Sometimes you just stay around too long, just collect the paycheck and then take an L while you're doing it. Sometimes it's better to do these things as a younger fighter to probably say, you know what, I'm out of my depth. I have to, like, throw the towel in. I can't do this. I'm going to tap out. Well, verbally tap out. So like Reece said, and you said yourself, Mitch, I commend him for it. And I think it should be done a lot more. I don't mean like, I lost a round, right, I'm out.
Now, one of the more bizarre things that happened this weekend was Jon Jones called out Mike Tyson. Obviously, we've seen Mike Tyson re-announce himself into the boxing world, looking like he's going to return. But apparently Bones maybe want a piece of Iron Mike, Reece.
No.
No more crossovers?
No. Like, I'm not a fan. Like, we saw it with Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, and Dana White's been very vocal about it. Like, it gets to a point in your career, you get to the age in your career, that's enough. Like you've had your time, you've performed admirably during your career, you're at the top of the game. Like, just let it go. I completely get that some fighters, you never lose that mindset and you always want to keep fighting. But I'm like, I think Dana White mentioned it in his press conference after. He said that once you've retired. Just stay retired. At the end of the day, you made that decision to retire. You made that assumption that you weren't at the top of your game anymore. You weren't good enough, so to say. So why, especially with Mike Tyson, like, the guy's been out of the game for so long. Like, why tarnish his legacy to come back and to just fight against fights that don't make sense? Like, I saw the Evander Holyfield fight mentioned, and it's no. Like, it's just simply bluntly not interested. I'd watch it though, but I'm not interested. So, of course I'd watch it. I'm human. I'm a fight fan. I'm going to watch it, but I just don't. I'm not interested in it at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Mitch.
We'll say it's a lose-lose situation for Jones because obviously he's beating up an old man in the ring, but if he gets knocked out, everyone's going to say, well, you just lost to a 50-year-old Mike Tyson.
At what point does it become elder abuse?
I think Connor's got that in the bag.
Yeah, like I thought Mike done one of his podcasts with Eminem, and he had said on that he doesn't have that mindset anymore. You know, because when he was in that mindset, a lot of bad things happened, a lot of dangerous things happened. So for him to actually flirt with this whole idea of coming back, and let's be honest, like I think he looks great on the pads and stuff. You know, he like I still wouldn't take a smack off him. Let's put it that way.
Teaching Ngannou and Henry Cejudo.
Yeah, like it's weird, but like even just seeing him do his own pad work, like he looks sharp, but pad work is very different to a fight. Let's be honest, pads don't hit you back,
especially against someone like Jon Jones.
Yeah, but like, look, if it's a boxing fight, I'd still favour Mike Tyson. Mitch, I can't even believe you went there. Like, it's not gonna happen. It's just something that was thrown out there to give people to talk about, and here we are talking about it. So give us all the views.
The fight world is
Jon Jones 2021 is happening.
The fight world is a crazy world, isn't it? And you know, Jon Jones retired from MMA. We've got him retired from boxing. Then they're both going to come back. You know, Jon Jones' sort of plea was we do one in the boxing and we have the one real one in the UFC. And he did promise not to break Mike Tyson in the octagon, but it is a crazy thing that we're seeing, and it is more comedic rather than serious, I think.
It's 100% comedic. Like, you know, I think
you see that £50 pay-per-view though, you're buying, aren't you?
I'm not going to speak because it's
if you
probably
speak, you're in trouble.
Yeah, if I speak, I may be in trouble. But like at the end of the day, like, you know, we saw it mentioned with Clarissa Shields and Amanda Nunes as well, is that they want to do one fight in the octagon, one fight in a boxing ring. I think we were briefly linked for a Stipe versus Anthony Joshua fight as well.
Tyson Fury was
Tyson Fury is always flirting. Obviously, he did that training video with Darren Till.
Dylan White now.
Derek Chisora's going maybe to Bellator. Like, I think we all just as athletes, just stay in your lane until you know, people can go, yeah, you deserve that. Like, there's certain athletes in the world that can physically do both. You look at Michael Venom Page, for example. He is obviously an incredible athlete, and he is so esteemed in both boxing and in both mixed martial arts as well. And he's done it on both stages. But just stay to your sport, stick to what you're good at. Don't put yourself in a position where you could embarrass yourself. And although Mike Tyson, as brilliant as he was back in his day, just keep doing your podcasts, keep doing your training videos with UFC fighters, keep improving other fighters. Don't focus on yourself. Let Jon Jones do whatever Jon Jones is doing, and let's just leave it as it is. But I'd still watch it.
Like I'm kind of thinking about it. Like, surely, in my mind, this is purely a financial reason as to why he's entertaining this. I can't fathom any other idea. But in the same sense, like, there's a movie being made about him, which he's gonna make a serious check off that. His podcast, I'm sure, generates a lot of money as well. I'm sure, and then like his marijuana and stuff like that. Like, he has his hands in a lot of pockets. Like, so he's making money. He's not broke. You know.
Yeah.
But so why fight? Is it a case of just trying to right some wrongs? I guess I don't know. But if he does that, he's gonna have like. There's a lot of these fighters, whoever he fights, is going to have a 20-year advantage over him. Not advantage, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
20 years the younger, like, they'll be lot more youthful. Like, I just don't understand it.
And also, as well, at the end of the day, like, I think I can compare this a lot to, like, football managers, for example. Like, since Mike Tyson was fighting, like, the game has evolved, a lot in 20 years. You know, there's different, like, obviously it was different with boxing, but how relevant 10 years ago were calf kicks in UFC or in MMA in general? They weren't a thing. Little. And now every fighter is utilising them. So I think it's exactly like that. Like, the game has moved on so much over since Mike Tyson's retired. as you said, like maybe it is some money, despite the fact of how much he's making. But yeah, like just enjoy retirement. You've had a life. You've had a hell of a sporting career. Like just sit back and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned that Eminem podcast. It seems to be since that Eminem podcast has come out and almost gone the complete opposite way. He said he didn't have that emotion anymore. But since that podcast has come out, he's going full blast. You can see what the effect Eminem has had on him.
That's what I think it is.
He listened to Lose Yourself a couple
like,
times.
Still knock out these heavyweights. Yeah.
Oh, don't. But yeah, it did. It was. I think in jest because Tyson did make a quote in a live chat saying a UFC fighter will never be richer than boxing. It had Conor had to make $100 million fighting Floyd Mayweather. He wouldn't probably get that in the UFC. But he said, following that, even if he fights Jon Jones, he's not going to get that. Jon Jones in boxing, of course. Jon Jones got to fight me if he wants to make some super money. So that was Tyson's sort of comments.
I agree to an extent. Well, for the foreseeable future, he is right. I do believe one day a fighter will make $100 million payday in the UFC.
Conor Jr.
If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be that kid. That kid knows business already. Yeah, but someone has to come along who eclipses Conor's stardom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a very hard thing to do because, there's a lot of stars that you could build off, but sometimes they lose a fight here and there. Whereas Conor he was good on the business side of things. He was good on the promoting side of things, and he was winning world titles. That helps. And he had a country back him. A lot of people, there's stars in him. Like Sean O'Malley, I think is going to be very, very good, and I think he will make some serious paydays. But I don't think he'll make the highest. I think they need something just a little bit different, something they've never seen before. And eventually, I think that $100 million payday will come. But I'm talking maybe 10 years down the line. Yeah,
an easy decade. Let's see. What did Conor make against Cowboy? 5-10 mil, maybe.
I think he made like 3 purse, and then whatever he made off pay-per-view.
So even then, that's 20. He's on 20% of $100 million purse at the very, very least. Perhaps he might be pushing 25%. That's a long way off for the biggest star, even. And no one's matching Conor's pay packet at the moment.
Exactly.
I would love to know what he gets for a
Conor. I think that's the thing with Conor is that you're always going to get big numbers, whether that be just strictly purse related or whether that is pay-per-view points. Like, you're always going to get those. And as Jay said earlier, like I think it's going to be ages before we see someone take over the sport like Conor has. Like Conor was just he burst onto the scene as this loudmouth Irish kid and the Cage Warriors, and he had a couple of highlight knockouts at Cage Warriors, and he had that debut against Marcus Brimage, and he kind of just burst onto the scene, with a 50 G's baby at the end and stuff like that. Like, we look back 20 years down the line, there's going to be, instead of like top 10 Conor McGregor moments, there'll be top 100 Conor McGregor moments. We've had so many over the years. Yeah. And I don't think we're going to see anyone like that. The only person who I could potentially see like that maybe is you look at like Sean O'Malley. You maybe look at Israel Adesanya in terms of he's got that whole country behind him as well. Mm-hmm. And obviously he's got teammates fighting out at that same gym as well. So that's definitely something that could play in his factor. But there's no one that has the all-round package like Conor has. As we said, Conor talks, he sells fights, and he goes in the octagon and he performs as well. And there's nothing more. At the end of the day, it's a promoter's wet dream, isn't it? It's literally doing everything you possibly can do. And yeah, I don't think we're going to see another Conor McGregor or anyone who helps the sport like that for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see, he's the only person who's probably guaranteed that we won't see this year because of the no crowds. He's the only fighter at the moment who's got that ticket to say, we're putting you to the side, waiting for next year. And even that's pissed him off at some points. And he seems pretty pissed off at the moment. But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to leave it. So we're saying no to Mike Tyson versus Jon Jones?
Absolutely. Absolutely not interested.
He's buying it. He's going to see it on sale, and Jay's buying that.
Yeah, I'm not interested, but I would absolutely watch it.
If you choose that or KSI versus Logan Paul 3, which one are you buying?
Jon Jones, Mike Tyson, because YouTube boxing is pathetic, and it shouldn't be anywhere near the limelight.
Okay, I think that's a good point to leave it on before I get
just watch
kicked out the
Anderson
group chat for
fight
saying that.
Jake Paul a million times.
Probably double what some UFC fighters made this weekend. So I think that puts things in perspective. But yeah, we had a great time chatting. We'd always go on to Conor McGregor in these conversations for some reason. Sounds like he's the biggest star in the sport at the moment.
Yep. Even when he's not fighting, it's still relevant.
Oh, you just have an Irish bloke who just mentions him all the time. I don't know.
It's okay.
I'm going to be the Brendan Schaub of MMA latest. Big Conor McGregor fanboy.
Oh, where can they find you, Jay?
Edit that out.
Oh, yeah. Where can the people find you on Twitter, Jay?
JAYFARRELL_1. So J_Farrell_1.
Awesome. And you, Reese?
Reese Man USA on Twitter, and from now on, all tweets will be ended with #technical recklessness. So, just want to point that out there.
Awesome. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get that printed on some t-shirts. I think at some point. That's quality from you, Reese. But yes, make sure to hit subscribe to MMA Latest. Make sure to drop the video a like and share it on your social medias, and we'll see you on the next video.